Can you see these beautiful students here in this?
Yes.
Yeah, so I like to just to thank you for this opportunity. It's very important for us, share ideas, and I told to my students that we are good friends, and I told that you are surf teacher in different continents. He's a famous guy. So, but now we talk about ability in supply chain and what you want to talk. So, please introduce yourself and tell us about what are you doing now. And it's very formal.
So yeah, as you told me, we're going to be talking about green business and low carbon economy. I will share my perspective, or this perspective we have here at Tools Group, towards it, and how supply chain optimization is an enabler for it. So first of all, I would like to introduce myself really quick. I've done my master in supply chain administration and supply chain management. During this time, I have worked in academic and NGO research, and also after, at first here at the University of Cologne in Germany, where I also still live in Cologne, and in between also, as Philippa already mentioned to you, at the University of California, Santa Barbara, where we not researched together, but we shared the office. And I also worked with the NGO called Trace. And over my my research, mostly the focus was on sustainability and supply chains. I worked mostly on palm oil supply chains, where we looked at the different actors in the industry, who's reliable and who's trying to cover up unsustainable behavior. And I also wrote my master's thesis on this topic, and this was what I was presenting last time. But as I told Felipe, and you've seen, now I'm working. I made it into a proper business life, and now I'm working at the Tools Group as a supply chain consultant. So I would just like to start with explaining you what we're doing at Tools Group. So first of all, what we say is we predict more behaviors, and we do this by understanding the demand of each item at each location in the supply chain at all different times, and we put this into relation to sales activities or external factors, which could be as simple as weather, for example. The second point, and what we do, is we protect against surprises. So by incorporating the uncertainty that we have in the real world into the supply chain planning, we make very stable inventory plans and inventory service. We're able to reach very high service levels with very minimum inventory. And because we do this, and also do this very automated, we allow our customers to perform more efficiently by providing schedules also for replenishment and production. So this is very abstract now, maybe. So to close to understand, let's look a little bit into the main functionalities that we provide. So first of all, to understand, Tools Group is a consultancy and software company. We develop our own software and implement it, as well as the software of partners, to optimize supply chain management. We use, in this software, we use very complex algorithms and machine learning to help to come to really good conclusions and stable results that you can base your plans on. And when we look at the screen now, you see these 5 colored boxes, and these are the main functionalities in our core software and the solutions that we implement at our customers. I would like to walk you through just very briefly, so you get an understanding of of what we're doing and how we reach the 3 core capabilities that you see in the blue arrows in the bottom. So one thing that we do is demand modeling. We look at the demand history of a customer, and we look at what are the factors that go in there, like seasonality, what are daily sales patterns, what are sales windows, when is it actually sold, to really clean the demand and get a good feeling, to later then calculate a forecast, which is a probabilistic forecast. This is what I said in the second step. It's not that we just say, okay, you will need this amount of units at this location, but we also find out what is the probabilistic nature of it behind. And then we enrich the forecast by what we see under demand sensing, where we have demand collaboration. We have additional business knowledge that probably comes from the sales part of the company. We know that there's a new product coming, and we use machine learning algorithms that tell us the future expectation of sales that we have with this product before even having a sales history. And this gives us or our customers very stable and good forecasts. Based on this, then we calculate inventory, optimized inventory that tells you at which item in which quantity you need at what location in what time. And by also not only looking at this individually for each item, but we're looking at groups of items, and we set combined service levels. We're able to reduce the overall inventory, but still keep the very high service levels needed by our customers. So the second important point is the reduction of inventory. And then if we know what we need when and where, we can also very well plan when it has to arrive and when it needs to be produced. And the more stable the forecast is the first step, and our inventory plan is the more stable, and we can optimize our supply. And so I hope you understood more or less. So it's all this is all achieved with our software and the software partners that we implement. And the 3 core capabilities that I hope that you all understood is that we improve forecasts. So this knowledge of what do I need when in what quantity. We reduce inventory by optimizing the inventory to this forecast, and by knowing which inventory we're going to need when, we can very stably plan the supply and the production for it. Is this all clear? This is the point in time where I wanted to ask you if you understood what I said, at least these 3 core capabilities. Is there any question? If somebody has a question, please come forward. Everybody's shaking their head, so I will go forward. So before we jump into how all these capabilities can in the end help sustainability, we want to ask, like, why is supply chain optimization such an important driver for sustainable economy? And there's a couple of numbers, not too many, but so first of all, logistic activities alone account for 10% of global CO2 emissions. That means that alone the logistics, which is just one part of the supply chain, are making up 10% of all the CO2 we produce. And this gives us a slight feeling of the potential that we have there. And now thinking about that, it's 10% of CO2 emissions, up to 25% of these are caused from empty backhauls. So this is returns where a truck delivered something to a location and it returns empty because there's nothing planned for this delivery, and it just has to come back in order to take the next load. And this means if you take these 2 numbers together, 2.5% of all CO2 is just just emitted for these backhauls. And this is something where you see, okay, there is a lot of potential. The next number, CO2 emissions from supply chains are 5 times that of companies' direct operations. This is when we're looking at the core business in the supply chain. They usually have a certain amount of CO2 they emit, but looking over the whole supply chain, usually it's around this number of like 5 times as much as they. So the potential that lies within the supply chain is much larger just when looking at an individual company. And another number that is very shocking is that globally every year we throw away 1.4 billion tons of food. And knowing that the global food system is the major driver for land use change, for depletion of freshwater resources and pollution of ecosystems, it makes it very clear and understandable that in supply chain optimization lies a lot of potential, especially when we now think about all these numbers could have been reduced by having an optimized supply chain, all of these numbers. And so now going forward, there's 2 main points where sustainability can be increased through supply chain optimization, and this is prevention of waste and the reduction of CO2 emissions. And I will now go through a couple of these points and connect them to, or explain them with our 3 core capabilities, how these can have an impact to reduce them. And also I will share with you some numbers that we have created through our customer base. So we have customers throughout over 45 countries, and we do case studies with them. We collect numbers and evaluate how much we could improve their businesses. And I will give you some numbers in relation to the potentials that we identify how sustainability can be increased with supply chain optimization. So let's first of all look at waste reduction. Just the first point, thinking about it, the less inventory you need to satisfy your demand, the less room you have for waste. So, and this is especially important if we look at perishable goods. Perishable goods, all sorts of foods or products that have an expiry date. If you don't sell them on time because you stock up too much, you don't know how much you need to satisfy a demand, and then the easy assumption is, let's stock up more. For those items, they will all turn to waste after a certain point of time. So for perishable goods, it's very important to have a good planning to know what you need at what point in time. And the same thing accounts to items with a short life cycle. Imagine Apple having still on stock iPhone 6s, they're hard to sell, right? And if this happens really quick, you want to make sure you don't have overstock from just avoid the risk of having too less by just stocking up more and more. And these are 3 ways that we reduce waste. So as I said, we optimize inventory, we reduce it, and this in generally reduces the chance of having waste. And our algorithms also allow to take the expiry date of items into account. So knowing that there's still a certain number of items that need to be sold in your storage can also tell you that you have to run sales or promotions on these items before they will perish. And looking just quickly at the numbers that we have here. So for NHS, we were able to, in the end, reduce waste by 30%. NHS is an interesting customer from Britain, the National Health, what do you want to say? They organize blood and transplant for hospital processes. So it's very important for them that these items have a really defined and important expiry date, and you want to reduce the waste of such items. Dr. Scher is a producer from Italy that makes gluten-free food, like bread without gluten. And with them, we could increase by 1.8 the freshness upon shipment. So the chance that something arrives and it's been already bad reduced. And looking at Amplifon, also an Italian company, a lot of the largest customer base we have is in Italy and Spain. There might be a couple of customers from Italy if you be surprised. And they were able to cut obsolescence by 40%. They are a global player in distribution, application, and customization of hearing solutions. Yeah, so quite interesting numbers to see how much you can do, and imagine like taking this into relation to the global numbers we've seen. If all companies would do this, we could reach a very much more sustainable economy. So let's look into the potential to reduce CO2, and I first of all want to have a look into the transport sector. So now, looking at the first point, we want to, or we are able to increase transport efficiency by, and I don't know how familiar you are with these terms. FTL means full truckload. So this is a fully utilized container or truck, while LTL is less than truckload. And if you have a very good forecast and you can plan your supply really stable, then you can plan in advance all your transportations, and you can also plan to really stock up all your vehicles and make sure they have a high efficiency. And in contrast, and this is the second point, if you're very unsure what you're going to need, when you're going to need it, that brings you to a point where you have to react to unpredicted demand change. And this often ends up that you have small quantities that you need really spontaneously at one location, and then if it is very needed, the company will decide, okay, let's just fill up the truck halfway, send it there, and then probably even return it empty. And this is a lot of CO2 that we emitted for not shipping too much. So this is definitely improved if you don't have to suddenly react to those demand changes. And the third point is what we've seen, this large number in the beginning, are the empty backhauls. If you know your plan and you know what you're going to supply when, you can also try to plan the backhauls to be filled trucks, or at least somewhat utilized trucks on the way back. This is specifically the case if you, within your own network, it's sometimes hard if an external supplier ships to you and then he does not have any customer in the region whatsoever. But this is definitely potential that has to be used and utilized in the future. We should not have so many empty trucks driving around. And supply chain optimization definitely helps this. If you can plan ahead and you know where trucks would run empty, you can plan on stuffing them somehow. Then looking at the numbers from our case studies, Granarolo was one of the greatest results in inventory level reduction, because they were able to reduce the inventory by 50%. McDonald's, one of the customers that you all probably know, with our solution, they were able in the end to reduce these like spontaneous shipments by 83%, which is a colossal number. thinking about that all these shipments are also not fully utilized. And then a third one is an example where we look at the reduction in costs from any logistic operations, but also, and this is very interesting, we actually calculated the CO2 savings, which were for them 70 tons within a year, which doesn't sound so large, but just to emphasize how much potential we have there, if all companies would do so. Then further on CO2 emissions reduction, there's 2 points that I would like to highlight. If we reduce inventory, we also reduce the space that we need to stock stuff. Looking at a company like on the page before that reduces by the inventory by 50%, they could have a storage facility half as big as before. And thinking about this, like every extra storage capacity that you have, it's not just lying there empty like a field that's not used. You will still have power running through it. You have to cool or heat it depending on what it is. So being able to reduce not only the inventory but also the inventory space, because the inventory reduction is so large, yields a fair bit of reduction potential. And furthermore, when we look at even beyond the direct supply stuff, but the production, which we mostly implement with partner software, we knowing that we have a stable plan, we know what we need and when, they can plan very well also when they produce what. And production in large batches is, so like large quantities at once, is always much more efficient than producing in small batches and even individual items. So and especially normally the factory is not laying completely down, and during the switch over and setup time, there's still energy consumed. So we also want to reduce this, and the more stable your plan is in the beginning, and you don't have to come back and say, I miscalculated, I need a small quantity of this product more in this location. You can stick to your original plan and make sure this is optimized as well. Looking at the numbers, Alopneu is a distributor for car tires in France. They reduced their warehousing area by 20%. Car tires are a fairly big product, so 20% of their storage area is quite a lot. And Alessi, who's a premium seller for household goods and gifts, they improved their forecast accuracy by 90%, which made their planning for production also much more accurate. So these are the two core impacts that supply chain optimization can have towards green economy and low carbon economy. But I also would like to highlight two other points that are very important as a selling point for us, but also should be seen as sustainable, not in the ecological, but in the at least economic direction and social. So one of them is that with our software, we increase the productivity of the planners and prevent them from stressful situations. They don't have so often that they catastrophically misplanned demands, which yes, on one side, selling this to our customers, automatization also frees up their working time for value-added tasks, and also having less waste, having less inventory to keep, and more optimized supply chain frees up capital that can be invested somewhere else. This is, as I said, mainly selling points to our customers, but looking into research, it was found that companies that are constantly working on their limit, on super thin margins, and they're just fighting to survive, they usually don't have time to think about innovation towards sustainability. So it is for a lot of companies a first step that they have to increase margins and also free up capital in order to be able to have the chance to look into innovation into a sustainable direction. And once again to numbers here. One is Rayapack. This is again an Italian company that produces packaging solutions, and they were able to spend 75% less time in proposals, in creating order proposals. And Moleskine is a premium seller for office equipment, and they freed up 15% of their working capital. And with 15%, it suddenly is free and can be invested into sustainable actions and sustainable innovations. Suddenly they get a lot of free room to move in this direction, which they would not have if this capital is still locked in overstock inventory and so on. Okay, we are almost done. I still have some time for the questions, but I hope this made clear for you the connection between supply chain optimization that obviously always has an economic gain that drives it, but also the importance that we will have in the future on this topic to reach a green business or a low carbon economy. Yes, and I'm happy to have your questions concerning this. We can also go back some slides if you have specific questions to some of what I presented. But I would hand over the word to you now. Or first of all, to Felipe, if you have a question.
Okay. Thank you, Nils. I will interrupt your share. I think it's better to see all together.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much. I have no idea that the number are so big. This about this thing, for example, the CO2 emissions is 5 times bigger the supply that in the company's operations. This is incredible.
That it obviously depends on the company that you look at. There's some industrial companies that are very CO2 intensive, and then in comparison to those, they might be smaller. But even looking at energy production from natural resources, these natural resources are often transported over fairly large distances. And if you're thinking about coal, it's also a heavy and large raw material. So the production sector and steps before and after a specific business activity definitely account to a lot of the CO2 that is emitted.
Okay, so can open to questions. Who wants to?
Yeah. I think there's at least one in the chat. My Portuguese is definitely not good enough, but I understand that Pergunta is the question, no?
Okay, who wants to ask in English, or if you want to ask in Portuguese, to have the translators, automatic translators. Who wants to begin? Or Samuel, I think we have some questions that people. Okay, Elaine first, then Samuel can and Fabiola.
I can try speaking English. I also not so good speaking English, but I would try. Nils, I think that you in the United States have the same problem that we have in Brazil, for example, when we speak about food, the transportation of food. Here, we live in a huge country, so it's hard transport this food to the other side of the country. We spend a lot of fuel. We have problems about the waste here. So this is so hard. So I heard about you that you could reduce the amount of waste, and I would like that you share with us um, what you do and your company do, uh, just to know more about how we can use this knowledge in Brazil. I think that you understand me a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks a lot for the question. So in general, looking into food, a lot of the waste that is created is because the food reaches the store and it goes rotten because it's not bought. And so this is a kind of overstock, because the store manager doesn't know how much he will need the next day. So if this store manager now would be able to plan better and just take out of the main cooling storage facility what he needs for the day, then he wouldn't have waste, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so so good planning would really help in this situation. Also, thinking about the production, like going back to some of this is also just produced too much. Like apples, obviously, you can't really time them, and you can try to put them in the storage and make them last longer. But there's other products that are just produced, and because they don't know that they're producing more than the demand will ever be in the time until it expires. So planning on this level could definitely help. And I think that it doesn't matter where it is in the world, especially with perishable food.
Yep. Thank you.
No problem.
Irene, I have a question.
Let's go.
Good afternoon, Nils.
Go ahead.
So I was
Hello.
wondering if you are working with any Brazilian company nowadays.
I have to ask. So we are distributed between. We have in Europe. I'm working in Germany in the European or German office, but we have for the South American and Central American market, we have an office located in Bogota, and I think so. We have customers within 46 countries, and Brazil being that high up in the economic rankings, I'm pretty sure we have a customer somewhere there. Unfortunately, I can't tell you now without looking into the database which it would be, but I'm pretty sure that we have one in Brazil, at least one.
Okay, then Clarice and then Juan.
Hi. I understand software works perfectly if you if you buy only from one supplier. You know, it's better to plan. Let's say if you have 30 days, 60 days of delivery. But how would that work if you have a couple or 3 or more suppliers, and before buying you have to check prices, you have to check availability. You know, there is a lot of competition for the same product, so you still don't know who is going to supply you, but you have to plan, and you want to reduce all those backs and forths of truckloads. And how does the software work with that?
Yes, that's definitely true, that if you don't have a close relation, a fixed relation with your suppliers, and you're flexible to decide between, for you, there will be certain numbers that are like metrics that are interesting. And for most of them, it's going to be the price, it's going to be the capacity, so how much potential supplier can supply you with, and also the lead time. You want to have it at some point in time. If somebody just tells you, I can provide you however you want, and at a super cheap price, but it's not going to be there until in a year. So there's certain factors that come in there. We have different functionalities on one side that can model it, and that will tell you in the end when your storage situation tells you, I need to replenish, I need to buy something, it tells you the alternatives. And this is the way to use an algorithm for it. But what we also do is we have demand and supply collaboration hubs. So this is communication software where you communicate with your suppliers and also with the sales team if it's on the demand side, and they can put in how much they can supply you with. And this is what comes from them, but it's also if you can plan far ahead and tell them early, okay, in 2 months from now, this is what I'm gonna need. They can plan with this. So the more we collaborate within a supply chain and share the knowledge that we have, the better this planning can get. And yes, we can give you an algorithm that just tells you at this situation, choose the best option, but you can really improve the options by sharing your knowledge and working together in your supply chain.
Okay, Juan, and then Esteban. Juan, please say where you are in this moment.
Okay, yes. Hello, Nils. Thanks for be here with us and share your ideas. I'm from Colombia. I'm in Bogota. So
Nice.
so I could hear that you work here in Bogota. I would like to know better what are the company doing here, because as you know, here in Colombia, the planning of the supply chain management is not easy because the conditions principally of infrastructure that the country has. But in other things, I think we here takes a long time to planning to consolidate the markets and to get a better structure of the market. So I would like to know first what are the company doing here in Colombia, and how are you doing? What do you think what are the potential or the strengths that the country has to generate a better supply chain management and a planning for all the supply chain? Thank you.
No worries. Yes, so and basically what we do in the different offices is we're doing the same thing. We have certain different software solutions that we implement for customers. We go there, we look at the data that they have, explain them how we can build the model, and what we can get out of it. And this is done by our company all over the world. So the same is done at Bogota. I have to be honest with you, I don't know the country's economy so well and precise that I can tell you the defined challenges that you're facing at the moment. But the digitalization is definitely something that has to be pushed no matter what country in. So in Germany we are considered as very far developed, but even here you see that a lot of the small medium enterprises, they still plan with simple Excel tools and heuristics instead of using sophisticated software. And I think this potential, if we still have it here, then it's definitely also present in Colombia. I'm pretty sure about that. But you're definitely right. A supply chain in Colombia might be different to the one in Germany, and it always comes down to the company. Every company is differently organized, depending if they use smaller storages spread across the country or a centralized storage. So it really comes down to the company in the end. What are their defined challenges? so I unfortunately can't give you an answer that is general for all the company and the country in the situation. And yeah, but because your first question was where we are located, you can just Google the tools group. I can also tools group Bogota, try to find out the address and post it in the chat after the questions.
Thank you. Stefan?
Hi, Nils.
Hello.
My question is, at the beginning of the pandemic, we saw a problem in the supply of many items, especially those related to health. And do you notice any fear in companies to reduce?
Yes. So as we've seen, the global pandemic had a big impact on all industries all over the world. And at our customers, we could definitely see that. And what is interesting is that with having our models in place, we could see different effects. So sometimes it was some supplier was just like not able to supply at all anymore, and this makes it necessary to move to another supplier and then just establish a whole new supply chain probably. While others, they just had problems with their lead time. So suddenly they couldn't deliver so fast because they had to go through much more checks. And by this, you can also see the big impact. And yes, there was definitely some companies that suddenly couldn't sell and they had like a lot of overstock. But this is somehow, I mean, if we would have been able to forecast COVID, I think we could have sold this to whole countries, not just companies. This is an uncertainty. It was very hard to predict. Like nobody really could, even when the first signs were coming up. And it was very interesting to see how the big change in just some numbers affected overall supply chain performance at some of our customers. And I would still say that knowing this or having the model in place definitely helped, because if you know, oh, suddenly my supplier doesn't take 1 week to supply, but it takes them 1.5 months, and you can put this into your model, and the model adjusts and tells you how to adjust to the situation. It definitely still helps, but something that you pointed out here, and that's definitely true. There's always unknowns that you can't prepare for, and the pandemic has certainly been one of those.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Guys, if you wanted to ask make some questions in Portuguese, can do, or can write, send the question to in our chat. And now we have some questions, maybe Samuel or Fabio, Natalia, who is the other, can translate? I think Elaine, Lívia, have some questions.
Hi. There's a question here from Elaine. I'll try to translate it. The telecoupling is a
Technical words.
Okay, let me try again.
Yeah, no problem.
Telecoupling is an approach in the socioeconomical and environmental interactions between natural and human systems coupled in distance. Do you use this structure to energy sustainability?
I couldn't fully understand.
Me neither.
Okay.
So
Sorry.
I just can't translate it.
Maybe
I tried my best. If anyone wants to give it a try,
yeah,
it's open.
Good. Maybe Elaine can talk and explain better what you want to know. Elaine, can you talk in Portuguese?
Ok. Hello, Nils.
Hello.
Vocês utilizam, aqui no Brasil a gente chama telecoplamento, mas toda a bibliografia vem da Europa, dos Estados Unidos, o telecoupling. Vocês utilizam para poder verificar a questão de interações socioeconômicas juntamente com a parte ambiental no trabalho que vocês desenvolvem? Ficou claro? Não, professor Felipe?
Acho que sim.
É que faz parte da minha tese e eu gostaria de saber se eles trabalham com isso.
Ok. Pode repetir agora?
Elaine, esclarece o que é telecoupling, assim, para a gente conseguir traduzir.
Acho que precisa disso, porque
então tá, o telecoupling, isso, é uma interação que acontece em você transportar, seja o que for, em grandes distâncias. E com isso se estuda todo o processo, desde a retirada do produto até a chegada no local, a questão das emissões de gás carbônico, dos poluentes, de tudo que a gente tem visto aqui na disciplina. E eu acho que, pelo tudo que eu entendi que ele falou, eles devem trabalhar, mas eu não sei se eles trabalham exatamente com isso. Que faz, ele falou de inventário, né?
Helene, telecoplamento é logística de informações, ou que eu acho que a gente não entendeu direito.
Isso. Eles estudam o teleacoplamento, a gente vai estudar desde o agente, né, que começa a trabalhar com o processo, toda a parte de envio, a chegada do produto, todo o processo. São 5 itens que se trabalha e pode ser que ele não trabalhe com isso e diga que não, mas eu fiquei curiosa por saber, porque tem muito a ver com o que ele falou com o meu trabalho.
É uma ferramenta de análise, então.
Isso mesmo.
Tu leva em consideração as questões sociais também, além dos... É isso?
Socioeconômica e ambiental. Ele trabalha, a estrutura é toda envolvida nisso.
Então, tu quer saber se ele também leva em consideração as questões sociais, além das ambientais, que é o que ele já falou que ele reduz, assim. Então, tu quer?
Isso. E se ele aplica o telecoupling, porque a China trabalha muito com isso e ele é voltado bastante para o e-commerce. E eu entendo que eles devem estar nisso, mas eu não sei se ele trabalha diretamente com isso.
Vamos agora
perguntar se eles usam e como que ele faz isso de repente.
Então vai lá.
So, Neil, we have a question here. Do you use telecoupling in your company? And if you do, how do you do it?
Have you heard of it?
Do you take into account the social numbers and contexts when you organize the supply chain, besides the financial, the economics and the environmental issues?
So we're looking at an individual company or the number of companies belonging to supply chain. I would not say that we take demographic or social aspects into this direct planning where we say, okay, our inventory does probably influence this. But what we can do is we have functionalities that allow us to use machine learning to basically incorporate any external factor. So, for example, if you have the feeling that your company is selling better on sunny days than in not so sunny days, we can incorporate this. And then yeah, have a look. And it might be certainly true. If you're selling ice cream, you definitely sell better on a sunny day than on a rainy day. And this can be done on all sorts of level. So if you feel like the demographic is very important for you to plan the needs that you will have, you can incorporate it, definitely. You just have to find out the metrics that you want to map in the solution. So if you have whatever you have the feeling that has an impact on the demand for your product, you can somehow model to go into, or at least you can first of all analyze if it has a significant impact. And if so, you can also use it. Yes, for example, if you sell glasses and you realize, okay, the number of older people is growing and growing, then you can definitely model this into and look at, okay, how many people are living in my market that are beyond 80 years old, for example. It is possible. But the other way around, if I recall this, I've only read over telecoupling once a couple of years ago. It's also the influence the other way around, and we definitely don't measure or try to model the effects that we have through the inventory and through the production plans that we have on such like social or demographic statistics. Is this more or less the answer that you were looking for?
Okay, I think so. Have you more questions? Fabiola, Samuel, are you checking?
No, Professor, here there's just like some, we are trying to understand that, for example, is it possible for us to adapt according to the company or not? For example, you have just one system, or any company can put all the information necessary to control itself?
Yes, so the software is always focused on an individual company. And because for every company, it will be different markets, it will be different products, and it will be a different supply chain. So it always has to be customized. And then also, if you want to incorporate external factors, definitely these will also vary depending on the solutions model that we build.
Stephen, have another question?
There is a question from Nivea. I can translate.
Yes.
She wants to know who develops your software. Which company?
Yeah, it's Schulz Group itself. So we are a software and a consultancy company. So we have our own products, and the largest and most known is the so-called Service Optimizer 99 Plus, or SO99. And then we have solutions like, as I said before, for demand collaboration. This is called DCH, the Demand Collaboration Hub. But we also use partner software. For example, for the production planning, we have a partner that we cooperate with. It's called, and their solution is called Compass. And then we establish that our inventory plan and replenishment plan is transferred to the software. This optimizes the production. So they make sure they have the least setup times, they produce in large batches, and then making sure they supply us with, or the customer with what we first told them that he's going to need from the software. But yeah, a large part of the software that we use is produced by us. And for certain applications, we have strategic partners.
Nils, you have more 10 minutes or to another questions?
If there's questions, sure.
Okay, thank you. So, anyone more questions? When you think, I have one. in Brazil, we buy we import some kiwi from New Zealand, and you produce kiwi here. So my question is, do you think in the future you will reduce this transportation, or this will increase to the commerce? It means people will prefer to consume products from their regions, or they will continue buying from another side of the world?
I think there's two main drivers for it. On one side is the consumption behavior. Is there so much demand that your own country can't satisfy it on all your local sources? And on the other side, it's definitely the political mechanisms that are put into place to reduce CO2. If you have a CO2 price, and this is pretty high, and in the end, you have to sell the New Zealand kiwi for 10 times the price than the locally produced one, I guess definitely the consumption of this will reduce. And I certainly hope also the more that that companies start to optimize their supply chains, they will realize that the long lead time that you have from New Zealand to Brazil, it is a large driver for inventory. It reduces the reactiveness of your supply chain, and sourcing locally has a lot of benefits that get, I think, much more prominent once that you have an organized way of visualization of your supply chain and having an overview. As long as the main metric is just price, and you think, okay, I have this storage area anyways, it's less likely to reduce. But the more that companies understand what are all the metrics that drive my inventory, and probably being penalized for having high inventories because of CO2, and this would definitely reduce it. And I think in total, or at least I hope myself, that we're going into a direction where we source more locally and yeah, less large, like huge transportation ways.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Samuel, Fabiola, more questions?
I have one, please. As you said when your presentation about NHS, I think, right? And it's like very big and well known around the world. Who are normally your clients? Are they more in the private sector, or you have like public sector clients, for example, a government, if they want to improve how the country is organized, or if they want to organize something about logistics and these kinds of things? Is it possible or not your goal?
So definitely most of our customers coming from the private sector. But whenever there is a supply chain, there's inventory, there's forecasting needed, the software would be applicable. But it's like, for example, now for having to react really quick for like planning the masks, or for example, I think at least from what I can tell you from Germany, this has been a very unorganized process, and it definitely didn't look like there was somebody really counting and organizing where is it coming from, how much do we need at what time, and how much do we want to store. If they would have organized it that way and got some data to it, it could have been applied, definitely. But since it's more companies that have like supply chain processes in place and want to improve them, it's mostly private companies that are already established, and they want to improve and visualize how is my supply chain. Some of the customers don't even have that understanding of their supply chain. They don't know the demand patterns and so on. And having an algorithm that decouples all these different effects that you have in your demand and then tell you, okay, in the future, if we can expect that you will run a promotion in this month and no promotion that month, and showing you, okay, which will be the effect for them, it's really profitable.
Dankeschön.
Bitte.
Good.
We have more questions, I think.
There's another question here. Is this software applicable to small companies, or you have to only for big companies with a huge supply chain?
This supply chain definitely doesn't have to be huge, but you have to have at least some data to supply the software with. If you don't have data, it's hard to model anything. And I would say this is the reason why super small companies, if for them it doesn't make sense to keep the data of their own business yet, then it doesn't make sense to apply the software, and it's not even applicable. But yeah, we also work with startups, with younger and smaller companies, for them it's easier solutions. It's not so complicated. And we implement them early and then just grow with them. We also do this, yes.
One more question. Fabi and Samuel.
I was trying to unmute here. We have a question here about the social responsibility. Do you have it in your company, or do you take it into consideration when you put it in the software, or it's not something you take into?
So social responsibility, I would say, is a very wide field. Certainly there's companies that at some end of their raw material sourcing, and I think this is what the question is pointing to, act not in the best sustainable way, as we know from worker exploitation and so on. But then also those companies don't want to often show this or want us to model it, because what is their gain? They're still looking to have these three core capabilities is usually what they come for. They want to have better forecast, better or reduce inventory, and an optimized supply. If the social responsibility is somehow integrated into the supply, so knowing that this or that supplier has a higher chance to being unable to supply you because they might run into issues like legal issues or whatsoever due to not acknowledging social responsibility, then yeah, it can definitely be modeled, and then it's of interest. But it's not that we analyze the effects of a product or the effects of yes. Yeah, I mean, if for supply, if it has an impact and you might have to react to it in some way, then I think, yeah, we model it, but it's not that we model all the effects that a company is causing, because there's also, it's, as I said before, it's such a wide field of how you can have a social impact, and it's always the balance of the effort to model it and the improvement that you can get from it, and since it's still our customers that define this, and it's not so much whole economies and countries done. Yes, I would say it's not in the focus most of the time.
I think we have more questions from Laís and Livia. You can can do this.
Yes. Do you have any client or company that work with fashion products? Like, how is the supply chain in the fashion business, that you have trends and you sometimes the companies they burn, literally set on fire the inventory that wasn't sold. Do you have an example how this software applied to it?
So yes, this I mean, this is something that we've just talked about. This is overstock. This is obsolete inventory. And yes, we have. It's hard for me to name one at the straight up a company from the fashion industry, but I know that we have. And if companies realize this is when they also realize that they need a software like ours. Because if you just produce and burn in the end, it's on one side, yes, it's bad because it's just waste, but it's also doesn't make sense from an economic point of view for them, right? To produce just to burn. Yes, our that's the case where our software is right at the right point. If you realize that you have overproduction, you have overstock that in the end you just have to salvage, then yes, this is where our software should be applied, and it would definitely then help to reduce this kind of behavior.
Okay, you have another question here. Mate here wants to know is it expensive to buy your software? And for example, if are there a lot of competition in the area for your company?
So yes, it's definitely I think for all the money that we have, it's not something you would just buy to play around with. And yeah, there's competition. We have been one of the earliest players in the market. The company already started over 20 years ago and it started as a project from the MIT in cooperation with Fiat, where they wanted to have an inventory model. Yes, nowadays there's more and more. We have been one of the first to apply machine learning in our field and such sophisticated algorithms. So we still have a competitive advantage when it comes to the algorithms, but the kind of software is definitely there from competitors as well. But yeah, it's always a question of your own supply chain and which software can model it the best way.
More questions? I think we.
Sorry. Are you able to model when trends change quickly, like in the fashion business? Again, I'm just trying to translate a question here.
Yeah. As I said, it's very important. I mean, from these fashion trends are pretty much very short items with very short life cycles. And if you know this, then yes, you definitely can model. And for example, if you would be Zara, that's one of the biggest sellers we have in Europe. I think most of you will know it. And they really react to trends. And for them, it could be interesting to, once they post the first pictures of a new collection, to check, okay, how on social media, how are the reactions? Which are the ones that are getting more likes, and then trying to get a machine learning algorithm to detect how the likes in the end will help you to predict the inventory. And there's also the possibility in the software to configure it in that way that it reacts especially fast to short-term trends. So if you realize there's a very quick trend in the last couple of days, then make sure to watch this item and replenish. So if the trend keeps going, you hold inventory matching this trend.
Okay, I think we went longer than we arranged. Can finish now. And so, Nils, I hope in the next year you can talk to the next group in Porto Alegre. Maybe you can visit us and talk presently. But I thank very much for this talk, very, very important for us. And I want to ask you to say some final words.
Yes, thanks a lot to first of all you, Felipe, for the opportunity to talk here. Thanks a lot for the great discussion and involvement here at the end. It was very good questions, very active. I'm very happy about this. I will also share with you, Felipe, the presentation, so you can share it among your students. And yeah, there's also my email in there. If there's further questions coming up, feel free to reach out through the mail or on LinkedIn or yeah, or through Felipe if none of this works for you. So yeah, thank you very much, and yeah, looking forward to talk next year.